I'm on a journey to find peace within my life. It's time to let go so I can climb to new heights. Nothing can stop me, I know, gonna make it to the end. Love is on my side, and I'm sure I'm gonna win. I wanna know the truth.
I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth.
Can you tell me?
I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth.
I want to know the truth.
Can you tell me?
It's been a long time that I've been searching for. Then one thing that makes my life complete. And I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna be strong. 'Cause in my heart, truth I'll always see. I wanna know, I'm gonna know. Can you tell me? I wanna know.
I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth.
I wanna know the truth.
Can you tell me?
We are living in a world of so many illusions, so much confusions. I need a strong foundation, the pearl of truth that separates the dark from light, from day and night. Help me change and sacrifice the wrong
Check.
from the
How can I find the truth? Let me count the ways. I can focus on my ancestors to brighten up my day. I can listen to a sage or an elder's wise word. Try some deep meditation where the Most High is served. Because the truth is beautiful, like children playing in the park. Or inside of rhyme ciphers where genius is spark. Be the dark, the light, and all the time that's in between. And you can find mad truth inside a trance states and dream. Listen to that little voice if he telling you for true. And with a bit of divination, show you what you gonna do. Whether it comes abstract or the stone hard fact. Cause if it comes from God, it be the truth. That's that. Yo, no need to question. Just learn the lesson. And ain't no stretching cause it's truth we're manifesting. Like what? Like what? What? 1, 2, I wanna know
Can
the
you
truth.
tell me? Can you let me know? I need to know the truth. Can you tell me? I really want to know the truth. I wanna know. I gotta know. I need to know the truth. I wanna know. I gotta know. I need to know the truth. I'm on a journey. I'm on a journey. I wanna find in my life. Yeah. Nothing can stop me. I'm gonna make it to the end. Love is on my side, and I know I'm gonna win. Oh,
I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. Can you tell me?
You know we're going to win. You know we are going to win because the truth will always win in God's time. Hetzipu, peace and blessings. Welcome back to Kamitic Legacy. Delighted to be here with you again tonight. All right, I see the webinar room is filling up here. We have over 500 people registered for tonight. Exciting topic. And we are live on Kamitic Legacy's Facebook, on Kamitic Legacy's YouTube page, as well as AAPA. Ra Un Nefer Amen is in the house. We're on his Facebook page, and we are also live on Instagram. So I want to welcome you all wherever you are joining us from. And it's my honor and pleasure to introduce some of you in a few minutes to an incredible person who has made a tremendous impact on our community and on the world. So if you are meeting him live for the very first time, put a one in the chat for us. Let us know. We want to welcome everybody. I've been so fortunate. I've known him for most of my life. And some of you might be seeing him for the first time. You may have read his book. All right, Nancy, I see you. All right. Okay, Nasonia Parker, welcome. What city and state are you from? Anthony Harrison. Wow. On Facebook, we have Charles Alonzo Nixon, very first time. Anthony, first time. Ronald, first time. That's incredible. All right, Carlos, 10 years. I got you beat a little bit. Cynthia, welcome. First time. We got Detroit, Michigan in the house, Newark, New Jersey. First timers. Darius, the very first time. Solomon. Yeah. I get excited because the first time I read one of his books, I trapped a friend of mine in my room. I'm so excited talking about this incredible Kamitic spirituality and the rebirth of it in our day and time. And some of you are experiencing that on the daily. First time we have Dante the poet. Okay. And you read METU NETER 1 and 2, and you put absorbed. I heard that. And we have Asante Kumasi from Anaheim, California. Welcome. Kabaku in the house from the Kakalakis. All right. Beautiful. So the room is filling up. And what a powerful subject matter we have to talk about tonight. You know, we're talking about the weighing of the heart and beyond the weighing of the heart, as you'll come to find out. Okay, Dante, Tree of Life Meditation System, I see you. Shechem Nefong staying up late in the UK. Houston, Texas is in the house. And how about those of you that have been just fired up, just making it happen with this winter solstice season that is still in effect? Put a WS in the chat if you're on the winter solstice. And if you're a old school Osirian, old school. If you're back in, okay. Yes. Okay, we have Kirti, Shrivastava, welcome. Daryl, welcome. Celeste, Matilda, Tony. Okay, winter solstice in the house. Kufu Osir. We have Masaman Kali. All right. Edwin, Jenny, Nuomu, and Monty. Boy, it's very gratifying. We have about 1,600 people in this course. Thousands and thousands of repetitions of the meditations are going on every day. I know this is impacting the world. All right. Oh, we got old school in the house. Sheka Ma'ati, Keparonk. That's old school. That's Netter New time, right? Ernestine on the winter solstice. Okay, Sherry. Carlton's on the winter solstice. 1998. Arishat. Going back. Beautiful. All right. Well, welcome everyone. You know, tonight we're talking about the Utchau METU and the Utchau METUT. And it's so timely because if you can think of one image, right? One image that awakened you to Kamitic spirituality, one image that you see all over the world, right? though this is our ancestral culture that is 5,000-6,000 years old. It's what the image of the weighing of the heart, right? The image of the so-called judgment scene that has echoed down to us through time, through the millennia. I can remember the first time I picked up a book on Kamitic spirituality. Actually, it was the book of the dead, actually. And I just felt something move, like something was familiar to me. Put some stars in the chat if that was your experience, right? I had read other spiritual books. I had seen other, the Bible, the Quran, things like that. But I felt something very familiar. I see you, 1990, Bernice. Set New, you know what I'm talking about, right? Osar Vishnu, you know what I'm talking about. Ramu, Nancy, right? It was like you were remembering something. I remember distinctly thinking, I don't know what this means, but I know I've seen it before. And one of the things I saw was that weighing of the heart, that judgment scene. It's known all over the world, right? But the real meaning of what that's all about, and not to mention the practical, everyday application of this to your life, most people have no clue. And this was released to the world many years ago, but it was codified, so to say, in the METU NETER Volume 7, which was released in 2012. And we are having, yes, it's a book. We are having a re-release of a 50th anniversary edition coming up in a few short weeks. And we wanted tonight to talk to you about not just this book, but most importantly, the process that this great ancestral spiritual system involves, what it really means, and how you can use it in your everyday life to improve, the everyday problems that we have, to improve how we function in this world. So at this time, it is my distinct honor and privilege to bring to the Kamitic Legacy stage the author of all 7 volumes of the METU NETER series, as well as Ma'at 11 Laws, some total of 40 or so publications, books, and other publications, over 100 meditation, musical compositions for deep healing and realization of divinity. A man who has spent the last, I don't want to say spent, he invested the last 50 years. We are celebrating 50 years of teaching and more years of practice before he began teaching, and doing that of service to the African community throughout the diaspora, building study centers and spreading this knowledge, and now on a digital platform to the benefit of the entire world. I'm talking about Ra Un Nefer Amen, who is the Shechem or Shechem. That's the ancient Kamitic title for the leader of the nation, the king. And we recognize his majesty. So let us all welcome him tonight and greet him with the ancient words of power, Anech Rak, which means power, peace, and blessings to you. Shechem Ra Un Nefer Amen.
Ragatepu, peace and blessings to you. All of you.
All right. Yes, we have about 300 so in the webinar room, and you are broadcasting on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So the web has been built to transmit this great wisdom that we're speaking about.
Well, that was the prophecy that said the evil one would spread the word of God throughout the world. So here we have social media that is doing so much wrong to our young kids, and it's not threatening democracy or whatever, also spreading the word of God.
Yes, sir.
Can't have it all, can't you?
Well,
So
what
what
a
you can't
wonderful
have, you
time
have
to
to
be
make it
alive.
happen.
Yes. And you've been making it happen, Shechem. Well, just
With your
to
help.
fill in, well, with yes, and a great team of people that you've trained over the years, and for those who are visiting and seeing you, meeting you for the very first time, I just want to let you all know that Shechem Ra Un Nefer Amen has produced many courses over the years, but we have a few thousand people in his Ma'at 11 Laws of Health, Wealth, and Success course, which is a digital on-demand course, and also the winter solstice season, unbelievable material that has been released since the beginning of the solstice back in December, and we're going into our third month strong. And just this last week, you introduced the practical application of the Utchau METU. So yeah, just like to ask you to open up, especially those people who have not been exposed to this, with exactly, what is that practice that we recognize and celebrate in the concept of the final judgment, or the double hall of judgment, and the weighing of the heart.
Yes, actually, we introduced the Utchau Medu over 10 years ago, or 15, 20 years ago, in our yearly initiation courses. You see, when we were limiting, when we're doing a limited version of the winter phase. And of course, we use it in the funeral ceremony for all of the Saddleset members that have passed, and so on. And to to explain what it is, I'd like to first, go back into a larger framework to understand what the Utchau Medu is. It's the weighing of the heart, which is symbolic of the mind and the will. You see that? So before we can understand and explain the Utchau Medu, the weighing of the heart, we have to, examine the purpose of meditation. You see that? You have to have a good and clear and deep understanding of what meditation is. When we look at the history, we find that meditation is big in the ancient world, in the non-Western world, you know. And meditation is relatively new to the Western world, In the Western world, people pray, but they don't actually meditate. Two different things. You see that? And meditation, as a thing in the Western world, was introduced by the Theosophists, Alice Bailey and Israel Regardie, the Rosicrucians and so on. And then in the 60s, when yoga began to become popular in the Western world, people began to embrace the practice of meditation. Unfortunately, as the way that things go in the Western world, meditation was hijacked by people whose main interest was to use it as a tool for fame and wealth, meaning they didn't take the time to study and practice and really understand it, so they dealt with it superficially, and they gave the world, especially the Western world, an incorrect view of what meditation is. When you speak to the average person in the Western world about meditation, they will say, "Oh yes, I know what it is. It's a procedure that you employ to relax, to de-stress, and then experience the healing benefits of deep relaxation, and de-stressing and things of that nature." You see that? Maybe calming the mind so that you can think clearly. And yes, meditation does those things. It has those values. But if that's what you're using meditation for, you're like a person who bought a 747, jet, okay, to ride it on the ground, okay, in your travels around the city. You see that? Okay, in other words, yes, you can drive a jet, on the road, but it's not meant for that. It's meant for flying. It meant for, moving at, a tremendous speed. Some of them at the speed of, of sound itself, you know. So why you want to use something like that to, ride around town to buy your groceries? Meaning what I'm trying to say here is that in the Western world, the purpose and value of meditation is grossly, grossly misunderstood. When you go into the ancient and non-Western practices of meditation, you will find that people in their meditations have a purpose and a theme. You see that they're meditating, okay, on one level, they're meditating, for the purpose of improving their health, their social life, okay, for improving the social environment, okay? They're meditating in order to increase their wealth, their relationships, etc. In other words, if you are just meditating to relax your body and your mind after, an unforgiven day at work, you see, when you should be using that meditation to become a millionaire, using meditation to, to find a good wife or husband, to improve your marriage, using meditation to improve your life, your relationships, your healing, and things of that nature, then you are grossly undervaluing, the use of meditation. You see that? So people meditate with a purpose and a theme. What is the theme in a meditation? The theme is the real part of the meditation, meaning that the theme has to do with the spiritual values that you must cultivate in order to enable two things to happen. One of them is, when you increase your morality, okay, your spiritual nature, you see, then now you have access to not only to your spiritual power, but access to God's spiritual power. You see that? Two things that you want to be successful in life is to use your spiritual power, just not your mind, your psyche, and the extension of your mind, computers and machinery, whatever, extension of your body. You have a greater, source of power, your spiritual power and God's spiritual power that you can leverage. But you must, increase your morality. You must rise above the lower part of your being. And I'd like to just give a little historical, insight into that. When we say yoga, we think of hatha yoga, the asanas, and the breathing techniques, the pranayamas and the mudras, and things of that nature, But there's a master text on yoga that is over 1,000 years old by Patanjali. And Patanjali opens up the book by saying that when you suppress the virtus, they see that, then consciousness has nothing else to recognize but itself. So consciousness dwelling in itself, meaning consciousness being conscious of being conscious. Consciousness being conscious of being conscious and nothing else is the ultimate state of samadhi. And when that happens, according to Patanjali, you achieve union with God. It's a half-truth in that. You see that? But what I want you to understand is that, the students of, and that's the master text of meditations in yoga, in the yoga system. You see, all the gurus, guru is like a master's, PhD in, Hinduism. You become a guru. So all the bona fide gurus have to learn this Patanjali, teaching. You see. So according to Patanjali, the purpose of meditation is to achieve oneness with God, union with God. The union is the word yoga, to unite, to yoke. You see that? The purpose is to achieve union with God. The theme of your meditations is the Dharma. The Dharma are the various spiritual laws, moral laws that you must, is one of the 8 limbs of yoga that you must observe. You see that? Meaning that your union with God is just not simply the result of technical abilities, of how you can manage your mind and keep your thoughts silent and have your body super relaxed and things like that, and how you can maybe bend forks with your mind, telekinesis, whatever, for you to achieve the goal of yoga, union with God, you must, perfect your morality. That's the theme. So that when people in the yoga system, the Sufi system, the Kamitic system, the Taoist system, when they meditate with a theme. The theme of my meditation is to improve, a particular part of my spirit, my mind, my psyche. And when I improve that part of my mind, my psyche, and my spirit, I will therefore be able to achieve my life goals: better employment, better wages, better health, better social standing, etc., etc. So you're meditating with a purpose, with a script. You see, with an objective, just not simply, to super relax yourself and calm yourself and de-stress yourself. You see that? And so it's important to understand that if you hear about the great benefits of yoga, and if your practice of yoga is restricted to the asanas, those are the postures or whatever, and the breathing techniques, the bandhas and the mudras and so on, then these are just simply the auxiliary supports of yoga. You see, there are 7 other limbs that you need to embrace, 7 more important, practices that you must observe, and that one of that is increasing and embedding your moral nature, because the purpose and the goal of yoga is for you to achieve union with God. That's what the word yoga, to yoke, means. And you cannot expect to unite with God if you have not become godlike, if you have not elevated your dharma, your morality. I hope this is common sense. You see that? You see, thieves and criminals cannot sit down next to God and have a good time. You see that they have to improve themselves first before they can come to God. At the very least, pledge to overcome their immorality and work hard at it. You see that? In the Kamitic system, we have the Utchau METU, the weighing of the will and the mind. The heart is a metaphor for the will. You see that? Okay? So the Utchau METU is a meditation process where you judge yourself. You judge the thoughts that make up your will, the will for your major purpose in life. You see that? And because you have to judge yourself on a daily basis, you have, according to, the spiritual laws, the laws of the spirit, the 11 laws of the spirit, you must judge yourself against this body of knowledge. And the presentation of the Utchau METU in the Kamitic system was the last judgment. You see that? Meaning that in ancient Egypt, in Kemet, life on earth was a meditation project, a spiritual goal, a spiritual project, where the purpose and the goal of this project was for you to become an oser, a divine woman or a divine man. You see that? Meaning you must transcend being human and being, divine, a divine entity. That's the goal of your meditations. You see that? You see, now the theme inside, this phenomenal goal, are using the laws of the spirit, the 11 laws of the spirit, as the means of, purifying and perfecting and awakening your spiritual abilities. You see that becoming moral and godlike, so that at the end of your life, when you're judged, you see, where you go to a judgment, as to whether you have lived these laws or not, it will determine whether your life, from the moment you die to your rebirth, your next time you come back to earth, will be in a good place. Will you rest in peace? Will your in between life periods be meaningful and beautiful and uplifting? That is what is determined at the last judgment. But that last judgment is the culmination of judgments that you have throughout your life as part of your nightly and daily meditations, meaning that you do not wait till you die to find out if you are divine and godly. You need to find that out as you go along, each and every night. So the last thing you do at night, according to the Kamitic, meditation system, no matter what the meditation is, for whatever the purpose is, you have to look to see, you have to assess, whether you are making progress in increasing your morality. Because you want to be an Oser. An Oser is a divine woman, a divine man, a godlike being. You have achieved that divinity in whose image you have been made. You see that? Okay? So that is your goal as you are doing your meditation, whether it is to increase the 11 parts of your spirit. You see that? So even though the meditation, has an ultimate goal, getting a job, buying a house, improving your health or whatever, those are not the real goals. The real goal of your Kamitic meditation, the real goal of your true yogic meditation is to increase and improve a spiritual and psychical and mental part of your being. And when that is improved, then you will get the house, then you will get the car, then you will get the healing. You see that? So you might find yourself working, on the same part of your spirit, to achieve 4 or 5 different, mundane goals. You're not working on getting money, you're not working on getting a house, you're working on perfecting, specific parts of your spirit, your mind, and psyche to get the house, to get the money. You see, the bottom line is that you're always meditating with a theme and a purpose, just not sitting down there emptying the mind. That's a misunderstanding of what Patanjali wrote in his book, the Yoga Sutras. So, to summarize what I've said so far, okay, the Utchau METU is a meditation system of self-examination to see, how well you have been doing, how you're coming along with your spiritual work. You see that? Judging yourself, your performance, so that, you will know, along the way what to tweak, what to fix, what to recommit yourself to, and so on.
So Shechem, you're saying that this great depiction of this weighing that's taking place is actually a meditation process. It's not just something that happens automatically when we die. It's actually a process of a system of meditation.
Yes, as a matter of fact, people speak about dying as we're going to sleep as a metaphor for dying. We speak of somebody goes to sleep, they die. It's like a sleep, and in a certain level, that's what it is. And every night when you go to sleep, your consciousness goes into certain parts of your spirit. You see that when you go through that non-REM period of sleep, your consciousness goes into the highest part of the spirit that you've cultivated, the 7th division in your spirit. You see that. And when you die, your consciousness goes to dwell in the highest part of the spirit that you have cultivated. You see that? So, so you need to cultivate and assess, you see, your growth. You see, you have to have a clear, objective assessment of how you're doing. You see that? Otherwise, you're meditating, without any goal, without any understanding of where you are. That's like going to school and there's no curriculum, no testing. Then at the end of 4 years, the teacher says, "Oh, you failed." Year after year, you didn't get any grading, nothing like that. You just had that 4 years, you get a failing grade.
Mm-hmm. So
That's above so below.
Yes. So this assessment, this self-assessment, how is it that we're able to make an objective? I mean, I think it's difficult for most people to be objective about our own performance. So you mentioned laws. Can you describe more what is this process of weighing, and how that meditation system differs from what we might be familiar with when we attempt to meditate?
Yeah, well, it's a judgment process, right? And when you judge, and wherever there's a judgment process, the judgment must be, they have to use a yardstick. And that yardstick has to be a law. It cannot be an opinion. Even though in the Western world, they say that the Supreme Court justice give opinions, by the definition of an opinion, if you judge based on opinions, then what you have is chaos. You see that? A law, it's an incontrovertible principle, meaning that, when I say to you that, gravity is a law, the behavior of gravity follows a law, meaning it is the same for everybody and every time. It doesn't change. And the outcome is predictable. So when I say that, you see, being at peace, having a peaceful response to a challenge is the only and correct response. You see that? Meaning that if your response to challenge is anger, fear, worry, grief, that anger, that fear, that worry, that grief, or whatever is going to damage your health, damage your brain, damage, your heart, your cardiovascular system. It's going to lower your IQ. You see that? So the whole thing is that you said, Amen. The law of Amen states that the correct response to a challenge in life is peace, not anger, not fear, not worry, grief. Because since these things make you sick and damage your performance, nothing that is harmful to you can be natural or a law. So, we have this belief that, it's natural to be angry. It's natural to be afraid. But when you give in to anger and fear, your ability to succeed, the ability to survive is diminished. So you need to cultivate the ability to remain at peace no matter what is going on around you, because being at peace is your best chance of surviving, your best chance of coming out of that situation and bouncing back and so forth. So you have 11 such laws in your spirit. You see that? So one part of the judgment, the Utchau may do, is the initiate is asked, not by him or herself or by, a priest or a priestess. The question comes from God itself, working through what you call your conscience. You see that? If you look into your conscience and deal with the question, have you, transcended anger, fear, worry, grief in your moments of challenges? You cannot lie to your conscience. You see that? So if you have that question as one of the judgment questions, and you can say, yes, not have I, giving into anger, fear, worry, grief, and things of that nature, then now you are declaring your innocence. But if you have to say, yes, I gave into anger, I gave into fear, then now you see that judgment is based on you going against a law of nature. So the Kamitic, the law, the Ma'at law of peace, the law of Amen, you see, it's a law of nature. It's not a commandment. You see, if I say to you, don't jump off of the 10th, floor of a building because the law of gravity will take over, you see, that's a law of nature. And the 11 laws of the spirit, the 11 laws of Ma'at are laws of nature. The second law is that, you see, unity is a law. You see, all things are in unity with each other. The moment things cease to be in unity, we have cancer and chaos in the world. You see that nothing can happen, things cannot go well if there's no unity. And so we go on. Of course, I cannot go through the laws and the explanation of the laws in this little discourse here, but you see, it is you're judging against laws of nature.
So Shechem and Shechem, many people, including I'm sure some of the new folks here and some of us who've been around for many years, have been convinced that if you say it's a law, a divine law, that we should remain peaceful, or we should remain at one with even people who do not seem to have our best interests at heart, they would say that they would find that very difficult to do. And if you have to judge yourself against that kind of standard, how does that actually work?
Well, first of all, you have to have a correct statement of the law. You see that? Okay? So lots of people that read my book, they paraphrase what I have written and using their own words. And their own words change the statement and change the understanding. You see that? So let's take the law, and you have to use all 11 laws that work synergistically together. You see that? So let's say the law of self, unity, being one with, everyone, regardless of the person's race and gender, etc., etc. Okay, but you need to have an explanation as to what do I mean by being one with somebody. It doesn't mean that if somebody, is, wicked and messed up or whatever, that you're going to sit down and break bread with that person. It means that you're not going to entertain thoughts of hatred and thoughts of fear against that person. You're not going to entertain, ill will towards that person. I said, if you didn't understand, what is it that unites us all? What unites us all is the presence of God in every human being. You see that? So when I maintain my oneness with somebody, I'm maintaining my oneness with the God dwelling in that person, so that I can not poison my spirit and my psyche and my mind with thoughts of fear and wickedness and ill will towards that person. Doesn't mean that I am going to, break bread with that person. So if that person one day, has a genuine need for my assistance and I can render that assistance, I will help that person. You see that? There's a possibility that that act will help to redeem that lost soul. You see that I lose nothing if I'm not going to go out of my way to assist that person, but if it is within my way to help that person, I'm not going to allow the knowledge of that person's, deviation. Because now comes the law of the third part of the spirit, Tehute, which says to you, nobody but God knows why somebody does wrong. You see that? Okay? A little child, 3 years old, was crying over nonsense, and I said, why are you crying? And the child says, I don't know. And that was a light bulb going off in my head, that people do wrong and they don't know why they do wrong. Brain damage from, a parent, a grandparent, a great-great-grandparent, an impoverished environment growing up, trauma, PTSD or whatever. You don't know, inappropriate diet. So the brain was not properly developed in the womb or in the first 28 years of life and things of that nature. So you don't really know why somebody does wrong. So you don't pass judgment, but you see that, and you don't nurture ill thoughts. Because when you nurture ill thoughts against somebody, you should know why that person, really know why that person is doing wrong. So that person's, incorrect conduct is coming from an illness, then you can't help it. You see that? What can you do? Give thanks to God that you're healthy. You see that? Okay?
So the Utchau METU meditation system, what is the actual process as we conduct that? Are we you're saying to analyze our behavior, or to look at our behavior, reflect on our behavior as it relates to these divine laws, and you're doing this with the awareness of God's presence?
Well, the procedure is that, first of all, the deceased or the initiate, if it's a lifetime meditation that we're doing, a personal meditation that we're doing, you see, first you must know the law. You must understand the laws that you're going to judge yourself by. You cannot judge yourself if against a law that you don't understand. So therefore, you're not living that law. So the first step is for the person to understand that law as part of a spiritual curriculum, a spiritual practice that they're going through. You see that? So, like, for example, here for the general public, we have the 11 laws of health, wealth, and success. So the student is studying, the 11 laws of the spirit and making the effort to live those laws, as a means of uplifting themselves spiritually, therefore, being able to share in God's powers to have a better mundane life. So to do that, a person has to now embrace, the 11 laws of the spirit, or several of these laws. So this now is put into meditation script, where you recall, the law that you have been working on, and you therefore follow up with, declaring that, yes, that you can say that you have not violated that law. And you are speaking to God who's present there, if you cannot see God. And an example of the presence of God is what you call your conscience. Actually, what you call your conscience is nothing else but a portal through which God speaks to you in regards to your morality. You see that? That's why there's a saying that you cannot hide from your conscience. You cannot lie your conscience. So in the Utchau METU, you adopt the awareness that God is present, and you are saying, yes, not have I, violated, let's say, the law of Amen. Meaning, not have I, indulge anger, fear, worry, grief, and, whatever negative behavior when I was challenged. You see that? Okay, so once you're not, when you're not able to say, yes, you have not, violated that law, when you cannot say that, then you have to pledge to do the work to measure up to that law. You see that? And how you're going to do that, how many days of what kind of meditation you're going to follow up with, will be part of your meditation course or whatever. You see that? When you are doing this in the final judgment, meaning after you die, you're going to go through the same judgment. When you after you die, people say, oh, you relive your life backwards. After you relive your life going up the tree of life. You see that? You start from the lowest level all the way up to the divine level. You see that? Okay, because all of us, you see, before we come to earth, we are shown, okay, what our life on earth will be like, and how we need to respond to that, and what the laws are and the values are. So you now, you ask that question. You said in the meditation, you ask yourself that question, It's in place of God asking you that question, working through your conscience. You see that?
And Shechem, you mentioned reincarnation, and I know we want to talk about some questions later on, but Kufu Oser, I think he echoed something that a lot of us have learned from the Eastern school, that the goal, he says, I thought the goal was to break the cycle of incarnations. Can you share the Kamitic perspective on that and how that relates to this process of growing in our virtue?
Well, you never find that breaking the cycle of reincarnation. You never find that anywhere in the Kamitic, teachings. You see, that is a Buddhist teaching, that is a Hindu teaching. You see that, and to understand that, you have to go do a deep dive into why do they want to break the cycle of reincarnation, and the answer is because Earth is a brutal place, a place of suffering, a place of a lot of negative things happening and creating, pain. And so you don't want to come back to that. But the thing is, there is a gross contradiction, in that, for the simple fact that, if you're doing your spiritual work, you will transcend suffering. You will be able to go through the challenges of life without suffering because you have mastered your psyche, you've mastered your mind, you've mastered your spirit. When you have mastered the parts of your being, you no longer will have a response of fear, worry, grief, and suffering. So once you have mastered, you say, and achieved the ability to be at peace and enjoy being at peace, meaning now you have mastered the law of happiness. You see that you can come back into this world. The world will cease. As a matter of fact, once you master the 11 laws of the spirit, you will be peaceful in every challenging situation, and you will enjoy being at peace, meaning you'll be happy. You see that? So when you come back, you will not suffer because you went out not suffering. You went out in peace. You see that? And there's a kind of pedestrian understanding of that. People say to everybody who dies, whether they did the work or not, and they earned it, they say, may he rest in peace. You see that? Okay? No, you have to achieve the peace, you see, while you are alive. You see, you have to master the peace and enjoy the peace in the midst of challenges. And one who has done that has no problem coming back into this world. So the gurus, you see, they contradict themselves. They betray that they have not mastered the ability to be at peace in the midst of the challenges of life.
So those of you who are just joining us, we have a lot of people online and on our YouTube channel. We just want to introduce Ra Un Nefer Amen. He's a Shechem or Shechem. That is the leader of the Osar Oset Society. He's celebrating 50 years of work in spirituality and education of our people and the world in the resurrection of the Kamitic spiritual system. And we're talking tonight about the Utchau METU, which is the ancient Kamitic meditation system, which is known as the weighing of the heart. But as he's explaining, it's actually your will and your thoughts. Now, Shechem, you've been teaching this for many years. Have you seen miraculous effects in people's lives from meditation in general? And what role does the Utchau METU play in that process?
Well, we're seeing, students in this course here, the winter phase, when, following the winter solstice, there have been a number of students who have, who are doing a meditation for the very first time, that came back and said how the young man in the last meeting we had on Tuesday this week here, young man came and said how, he started the meditation in December, and now he was able to buy a house. He was able miraculously to buy a house. You see that? And we have many people that are doing this meditation system for the first time, who have been able to heal themselves, give up bad habits, improve their social life, the testimonials. You have many people, and I'm sure that some of the people present will have testimonials that they might share. You see that? And in Osada said we have survived and grown for 50 years all over the world because these meditations produce effect. You see that we're just not doing meditation for people to be relaxed and calm and de-stressed. As a matter of fact, when it comes to stress, we have a stress-free for life course and book where you can make yourself free of stress. Imagine not having to have a stress response. You see that? Okay? To go through life where nothing stresses you, you don't have a stress response. You see that? So this is part of, the meditation system. Now, applying the Utchau METU, okay, we have applied it to many of the Osada students for the past 15 years or so in our initiation system. This is the first time we are going public. Actually, for the past, I would say, 2-3 years, we went public with it. You see, with, non-Osada members who joined, who took the course. But we didn't do a follow-up with them to get the testimonials. You see that? But for the people who are asking these questions, hang with us and you're going to find people giving you testimonials of how the Utchau METU, magnified the success of the meditations. You see that? It's not a separate meditation. It's an adjunct to any meditation that you're doing. You want to make yourself accountable to God for the work that you're doing to perfect your soul, to perfect your mind and your spirit.
Mm-hmm. And we have a sister with us on YouTube that also brought up a point, something that you mentioned. In the process of this meditation, we use a meditation script, and we are achieving life goals like improving our ability to have a better place to live, or career advancement, or relationship, and so on. And she raises a point that you can be corrupt and get these things, as we well know. You can be corrupt and get money and a house and so on. So how does the Kamitic spiritual system look at the material side of life as it relates to our spiritual development?
Yes, that's why I said earlier in this meeting here that the theme of the meditation is the real goal is not the things of this world. The real goal is your spiritual upliftment. You see that? If when I'm meditating on uplifting my spirit, uplifting my mind, according to the laws that govern the 11 parts of my mind, according to the virtues that govern my soul. You see that? And as a result of that, I can therefore, I would be guaranteed to get the things, that I need in this life. We never said that the only way that you can get things in this world is by doing these meditations. What we're saying is that what you want to do is that you want to enhance your ability to get the things in this world through uplifting your spirituality. And you will find that there are many times that your back is against the wall and you cannot go backwards, you cannot come forward, yet the meditation will uplift your mind, uplift your spirit and your sight, and enable you to be successful in life. You see that? But the goal in life is to get things through spiritual means, not just to get things. The goal in life is to become an oser. That's why we explained to you, the cover of the book shows Heru wearing the red and white crown, meaning the crown of divinity. You see that? Leading the initiate, to the halls of judgment. You see? Meaning that, it is your spiritual upliftment that is the goal of the spiritual work. You see that? And if you ask yourself, well, why should I uplift myself spiritually? Well, one of the blessings of spiritual upliftment is you will be guaranteed a good life. You see that? Okay, and one of the things that the people who are corrupt and so forth that they do not get from this, the mundane accomplishment is the enlightenment and the inner peace and the inner power that true spiritual work, brings them.
So what would be the difference in people's lives if they've acquired the same thing materially, but one person did it without cultivating anything uplifting or any morality, and another person did it by cultivating the Oser, by cultivating their divinity? What would the difference in their qualities of life be?
Well, when you live a spiritual life and you are, you are spiritually uplifted, your morality, you are morally uplifted and so forth, you will have true blessings of true fellowship. You see that you have, an inner peace and the ability to achieve your goals. The people who are corrupt and things of that nature, who are living a corrupt life, they run into many other, problems with their health and their vitality and the well-being, even though they may have cars, et cetera, et cetera. We have, you had this guy here, Anthony Bourdain. You remember the chef, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where he had all of this success and things of that nature, ended up committing suicide. You see, he was tormented, and we have lots of people. Of course, we cannot go into people's minds to find out what's going on in them, but I know for sure that the majority of people who are corrupt and living a corrupt life, they're quietly suffering from inner torment. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They don't have the true respect of people around them, etc., etc., and they are ridden by illness and things and no way of fixing it. You see that? And people have to understand that when you live a spiritual life, you are increasing you're enhancing the opportunity to have a successful life, a life where people respect you, a life where your inner thoughts and your inner feelings will be harmonious, contributing to well-being and wellness.
Yes, second. That's very on time, because right now, it's not just right now, but there's a lot of people who are into manifestation, which is what they're calling putting to use the law of attraction, the law of so-called positive thinking and things of that nature. So how does the Utchau METU enable those abilities, or how does it differ from, let's say, a person that is trying to do their best to live a moral life, but they're trying to utilize creative visualization and positive affirmations and those type of things, but not quite the Utchau METU?
Well, the thing about the Utchau METU is that it is based on you, making yourself accountable to God for doing the work to spiritually uplift yourself in order to get God's assistance, to sharing God's spiritual powers and God's wisdom to solve your problems in life. You see that? Okay, to solve your problems in a harmonious way, which is something that the corrupt person cannot get. The corrupt person cannot get help from God and wisdom to solve their problems and so on. So it is the success comes from the enhancement of your mind, the divine guidance, sharing in God's power to get what you want, as opposed to, following some theory that if you think rich, you attract richness to yourself. If you think success, you attract success. That's the so-called law of attraction, which is nothing else but a theory. You see that? Okay. The spiritual laws that we're speaking about here, are thousands of years old, that has been the foundation, of the building of the civilizations like ancient Egypt. You see that? By ancient India, by the Taoist, China, and things of that nature. And when we look at these societies that existed and survived for thousands of years, You see, and we take these teachings and bring them into our lives, we're able to rebuild, a healthy and successful community. You see that we're able to attract and surround ourselves with people, who are following moral, ways of achieving the goal. When you're part of a social environment that has been built by corruption and immorality, then you're living in a situation where people kill each other. People, they backstab each other. They do all kind of incorrect things to each other, and that's part of that lifestyle of building your life, without a moral, spiritual, guidelines.
Yes. Shechem, you're speaking about a subject that is foreign to the Western world when you speak about, I mean, the title of your book is The Realization and Proof of Divinity. And as you said earlier, the way that we unite with God is we have to rise to that level of living by divine laws, uh, which is very foreign to the Western world, where we kind of just think of ourselves as human beings. We're only human. How can we possibly give, a divine response? Or we might even philosophically believe that that was only capable by a few saints or a savior. Um, in your understanding of Kamitic spirituality, how do we know that this is even possible, for us to live this virtuous life, to live a divine life, to actually live as a divine being?
Well, if you're looking for proof in terms of it working in the lives of people that we come by, as opposed to saying, well, it's true because I read it somewhere. It's stated in the historical records, even though it is stated in the records of Kemet that men and women became, divine beings, meaning Osiris. Here in Osiris said in the 50 years of our community, we have had a community that in 50 years has not seen, any of the immorality and criminality, and negativity that exists in the world at large. Okay, all our members, there's no pedophilia, there's no rape, there is none of these things going on. You see that? Okay, we have a society that is 50 years old. It has gone international. People are experienced, that they all have good jobs. The majority, 99% of them, they are well. Okay, the illness, sort of said, the chronic, catastrophic illnesses are, it's a minority of our members. In the 50 years, we've had only like 10 members who have died of cancer, for example. You see that? Okay. So we have experienced, our members have experienced well-being. You see that from this way of life. Okay. And this way of life, these meditations and so forth, have been purposed for the way of life that we've experienced. And now we are at the point where we can say to ourselves and to the world, we vetted the ancient teachings of ancient Kemet, and we vetted it in our own laboratory, Osada said. You see that? And now we want to share it with you. And as we're sharing it, we're getting more and more testimonials from the general public speaking about how, much their life is being improved.
Yes, and some of you are with us tonight, so we would like, if you would like to share some of the wonderful experiences. I know we've had several people, as you mentioned. One young lady was struggling with an addictive habit for many years, and in just 4 days of applying the meditation, she was able to drop that habit. So yeah, that's been great. Actually, we have one right here, Shechem. I'll share. We have Kirti Shrivastava. He says I've been in the winter solstice since the launch of the course, In the last class, I was the one who asked how to manage the recurrence of anger outside of meditation. I am practicing more, as Shechem said to. I have such a reduction in ruminating thoughts first thing in the morning and less triggers throughout the day. I'm also feeling a deep reunion of sorts with my Indian heritage and this Kamitic work, mantras and hekau. And I feel a lot unlocking like codes and ciphers in language. Appreciate that.
And
Very
it is
new.
interesting that a person has been doing the meditation since December, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is when you stop and think about how much time and money people spend in psychotherapy and seeing clinical psychologists, you see, and for years they don't get this kind of results. You see that, and it's interesting that this person is able to see the unity between his Indian heritage and what we're teaching here, because you see, we're not here to replace other traditions. We are here to celebrate the wisdom of God that has been spread through the different spiritual traditions around the world. You see that?
Mm-hmm. So Shechem, for people that are not as familiar with your work, this idea that ancient Kemet was, a society where the king or the leader was looked at as divine, and the rest of the people were not. You're dispelling that ignorance that's been perpetuated tonight.
Yeah, well, a lot of things that people know about ancient Egypt was fabricated by Western scholars. If we stretch the meaning of the word scholars. The divinity, when you achieve your divinity, you're able to append the title of Oser to your name. You see that in ancient Egypt, when a person died, if they had achieved divinity, they were able to put, like, let's say your name was Joseph, you can say Oser Joseph or Joseph the Oser. So you append Oser to your name. You see that? And the thing is that, hidden in museums around the world, the major museums around the world, you see, that have, Egyptian antiquities, are mummies and stelas and writings of, many people on different levels of life, kings, queen mothers, accountants, captains, laborers, people on different levels of society who were able to append the title of Oser to their name. And the Utchau may do the last judgment that they have to go through in order to to define their divinity, to bolster up the divinity, the claim to divinity. They had to go through the 42 declarations of freedom from sin, which the Egyptian scholars incorrectly called the 42 negative confessions. No, they were declaring that they were free of sins. If they not have I indulged anger, not have I indulged fear, not have I made anyone to suffer, not have I not have I did not help those in need. You see, you had to declare your innocence and your embracing of living truth before you could be declared an Oser, meaning a divine woman or a divine man. But that was the goal of the ancient Egyptians, to become a divine being. If in the Western world, your goal is to become, a paparazzi, to become a singer, to become, a president. But the thing is that those are not life goals. Those are the means through which you are going to achieve, do the work to achieve your divinity, to make those things happen. It's a difference. It might sound like a little play in words in there. I'm going to focus on becoming a divine being or increasing my divinity to make the things of this world happen. You see that? Okay? And which is a different approach to achieving your goals. You see that?
Seeking first the kingdom of heaven, somebody once said.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
And all of these things will be added on to you.
Yes. And Shechem, I remember years ago when you were speaking about this subject matter, you said something very striking. You said that that Kamitic in particular gave us the description of divinity, of what divinity really looks like. And I think that's so helpful to many people to understand that what that is. So this process of declaration is tied into us understanding what it looks like to actually achieve one's divinity.
Yes. In other words, in the Kamitic system, what they did was that they, first and foremost, identified, the faculties of the spirit, the mind and the psyche, so that you will know, what are the faculties that are responsible for your conduct in this world and responsible for the things that you are seeking to achieve. You see that? So those things were identified, and then now the laws that govern them were then put in place. You see, and then now when you follow these laws, you would then perfect your spirit and achieve your divinity. So now we know exactly what a divine being looks like, what you need to do to transcend your human nature to become a divine being. And it's a rigorous thing. For example, you have to transcend anger, fear, worry, grief, all the things that in the Western world you're told is normal. Go ahead and indulge these things. The minute I indulge my emotions and my conditioning and my sensuality, my IQ drops. My performance quotient drops. My cortisol increases. My body begins to secrete all kind of negative, chemicals, whatever. That every time that I indulge in negative conditioning. In the Kamitic tradition, you see, you have this so-called 42 negative confessions, which are really 42 declarations of freedom from sin. That once you have lived those virtues for a certain number of time of your initiation, you say, then now you will be declared by your conscience to be a divine being. You see that? And the ancient Egyptians, they had the priests, they had the oracle systems that they could come back and through an oracle spiritual reading, find out if in truth did you achieve your divinity and things of that nature. So, and it's interesting when you go into Buddhism and Taoism and so forth, you find that none of these great traditions have defined what divinity looks like and exactly how to achieve it. They spoke about different aspects of the work. You see, the Buddhists, they speak about how to have this clear, lucid, rational, logical mind. But they shied away from, acknowledging God's existence. It's well, they say nobody can prove it, but that is, they're speaking about what they know and don't know and can do and can't do. But ancient Egypt took that step and said, this is what God is, and this is what you, in it made in likeness of God is, and this is how you achieve it. And when you go through the work, you'll find your life begins to improve and wellness begins to be part of your life. I was supposed to be a concert pianist. I got a scholarship to go to Manor School of Music, College of Music, as a pianist. And the I Ching told me, walk away. I struggled with that notion for 3 years, and eventually, I surrendered. And here 45 books later, the community, around for 50 years around the world, okay, is the result of me following, a book that was able to divine and predict what my life was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be doing with my life. You see that? So you have these beautiful techniques and tools in the proper spiritual world. And I said proper because there's a lot of people in this world, who are just looking for fame and wellness and riches, who will, take in the wrong directions. You see that?
Yes, yes. So we have Edwin in the webinar room, and an interesting question, because when you speak about following, your conscience, and that your conscience is actually the portal through which God speaks to you. A lot of us have a guilty conscience, so-called, or he asked the question, can you destroy your conscience so it becomes, I'm not sure what he means by redundant, or does not speak to you anymore?
No, you cannot do that. There are some people whose conscience does not speak to them because they have become, crystallized in a belief that goes against truth. Some people that's not affecting the consciousness, the conscience, that's blocking it. You see that? But what does conscience do? Conscience comes in and always say to you, that's not true. You shouldn't be doing that. So your conscience is there admonishing you, trying to keep you on the correct path. You see that? Okay? And part of the Utchau METU is always listen to your conscience. When you listen to your conscience, especially the conscience that has been cultivated with the 11 laws, you are going to find yourself, going beyond just getting, admonishments here and there. You are going to end up getting, tons and tons and tons of spiritual instructions from God, talking to you through what you call your conscience. You see that? Okay? That's how I wrote all my books. Listen to the voice of my conscience. Later on, it says, let me explain to you the 11 parts of your spirit. Let me explain to you the words of power. Let me explain to you where you can go to retrieve these words of power, etc., etc. It comes to you through your conscience, but you have to respect it. You cannot silence the conscience, and you can block it. You can, do a firewall, and I'm not going to listen to it. Is it? But you shouldn't do that.
So we have Gloria. She's on our one of our YouTube channels, and she says, "What's the difference between willing, ambition, and desire?"
Willing, properly understood and properly expressed, is an intention to do something, to achieve something that is not motivated by your feelings, likes and dislikes and impulses. Desire is an energy that's pushing you to do something for pleasurable gratification. Ambition is also an energy that is pushing you to expand. You see that your sphere of achievement and things of that nature, these are energies, as opposed to willing, the will, which is the active aspect of who you are, your volition. You see it, your will. Okay, what you choose to do. To choose to do something is to act in freedom from emotional impulses, sensual impulses. So that's a spiritual goal that you want to achieve. You see that the Heru part of your spirit, you want to cultivate that, because whenever you're doing something, because an energy, desire, ambition is pushing you to do that, remember that energies have no conscience. Energies don't have any spiritual light in them, no intelligence, no vision, no morality. They are not moral things. So desires and ambition can push you to do the wrong things. Your will can be cultivated. That's why the Utchau METU is the weighing of the will, because the heart spirit, the ebb, the heart spirit. You see that is something, a spiritual part of you that you need to cultivate and bring into your mind and your psyche, so that you can function, with full understanding of what is right and what is wrong. So that's what will is. But you must first understand what the will is, because there's a lack of understanding of what the will is in the world.
And Shechem, what's the significance of the feather that the will, in this case, the symbol, the heart, is being weighed against?
Yeah, in other words, you see, it's a metaphor. Weighing of the heart is a metaphor that grows and is expanded on different levels. You see, and in the graphic scene of the weighing of the heart, the heart is in one of the pans of a weighing scale, and in the other pan there's a feather of an ostrich. You see that? Okay. So what they're saying here is that when your heart is not weighed down by guilt, you see that? Okay, by indulgence in the wrong things, then this piece of meat there does not weigh more than a feather.
Mm.
You see that? That's the graphic metaphor for your heart is light, the lightness of the heart. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And the feather of the ostrich, symbolizes Ma'at. So that's another poetical statement that your will is consonant and synchronistic. I'm not saying the right thing here with your living of truth. You see that?
And we have Charlene. She's in the webinar room, and she says, if a family member or friend wanted to start the winter solstice now, is it too late for them?
Well, if they start now, they will, and they complete those 21 days. They will be completing the 21 days right up onto the deadline. So start now will be like tonight, tomorrow, and they must do the work.
Mm-hmm. There'll still be a benefit, and the following course in the springtime will, so somebody that started late, like tomorrow or the next couple of days, will they still have a benefit that they can take over into the next session?
Well, when we put the spring course together, right, there will be aspects of the course that will look back into what was done in the winter and bring it and leveraging it and things of that nature. It will not be quite the same, but knowing that people, missed opportunity, I will put in place a module into the spring course, things that people can leverage to kind of like make up. You see that? And because you see, the thing is that, everything has, all things in this world, is conditioned by the law of cycles. You see that? And when something is out of cycle, it means that the energy that sustains it is not available. The type of energy that sustains, the winter work is not available in the spring. The spring is a time for you to carry out the things that you cultivated and put in place in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? So if come the spring, if you're putting in place, things dealing, with cleaning out the soil, the spina, and that part of your spirit is not getting much energy anymore. It's working what is there already. But now we're functioning, now we're pivoting to another part, another chakra, the Anahata chakra. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that we can properly modulate, the ambition, gung-ho part of the psyche, to carry out the work to achieve our goals. You see that?
So will the Utchau METU still have a relevant role throughout the rest of the year, or is it confined to the winter season?
No, the Utchau METU is something that you must do as part of every meditation that you do in the rest of your life. You see that? And the thing is, in ancient, a lot of things from Kamitic, right, were written up and salvaged, you say, through certain stylized, paintings and things of that nature. So when we are in the process of recovering these ancient teachings from Kamitic, They did not write these things down in an instructive manner. You see, they presented it as vignettes and pictures, metaphoric, statements for, the people, because a picture's worth 1,000 words. You see that? So they left these symbols and these pictures, but also recover, the knowledge of what they mean and how to use them. And it's been taking a good 50 years for us to really understand many of these things. Fortunately, we understood enough of them, to make the 50 years, a blessed experience.
Well, we have Kufu Oser, who says, I started in December. I did not get a house. I didn't get a car or a wife, but I thought I was feeling better overall until this week. I had a big setback as of this past Monday. Is it normal to have setbacks?
Okay. First of all, you're doing something, to improve your divinity so that you can achieve your goals for this year. You see that? Okay. Now, the thing is that, setbacks, okay, are the obstructions that come up in life, the challenges that come up in life, okay, and you need now to apply the teachings, you say, of increasing your divinity or your relationship with God to navigate these setbacks. In other words, he's taking this course here, okay. The first part of the course, the first module of the course was, your sharing in God's omnipresence. You see that? Okay. The second part was, sharing God's omniscience. So you have a setback. Make your omniscience module, the class there, the omniscience class, the focus of seeking help from God and how you can rectify, and overcome the setback. You see that? Okay. And then make that the hub of doing now your God's omnipresence meditation, because the information that you need, can come from a person that you don't even know, and that's the omnipresence of God. You see that? Okay. The omnipresence from God can help you with your setback, you see, by bringing you people that can help you. You see, so see that happening in meditations. God's omnipotence, okay? You might find that just if you, look at, the rules that is given for sharing in God's omnipotence, you might find that you might awaken some power within your being, some talent within your being, some ability to rectify that setback. Setback is a normal part of everybody's life. Everybody has setbacks. You cannot have a life without challenges. Okay, and that is why God has made you peaceful by nature. When you cultivate your divine endowment of peace and master the ability to remain at peace while things are falling apart in your life, you will find that you will attract the ability to bounce back from these challenges. You see that? Spirituality is not to make life free of challenges. Spirituality is to help you, not suffer from setbacks, not suffer from challenges and things of that nature, and to help you bounce back. So do the omniscient part of the work. Ask God to help you. Do the omnipresent part of your work and see yourself helping others that they may come to help you. Do the omnipotence part of the work, okay? In order to see how can you be of service to God. You see that God might give you additional help. Do the Swadhisthana cleansing part of the work, okay? To rise above, any emotional response that you might tend to indulge as a result of this setback. This work that was given to you will enable you, done the right way, will enable you to hold on to your peace, and enjoy being at peace in the midst of this setback. You see that? You cannot expect to have a life that is free of challenges. Nobody goes through such a life. What we do want is to have the spiritual mastery of our psyche, our mind and spirit, to remain peaceful and enjoy the peace, which is what we call happiness.
So for those of you who are here for the first time, or you're just getting familiar with this work, some of these terms you might not be familiar with, but they are not only explained, but we're given meditations in the courses that we're speaking about. That is the Ma'at 11 Laws course and the Winter Solstice Season course. We're here tonight talking about the re-release of a book that explains in detail and also gives you the practical application of this METU, this Utchau METU process of meditation by Shechem or Shechem, released back in 2012 and is being re-released shortly. So you can visit KamiticLegacy.com. I'll put that up again, KamiticLegacy.com. And you will keep your eye on there. You want to sign up for our email list so that when the book comes, is actually ready to ship, we can let you know. But we do have, several other books, including the Kundalini Yoga book, where he just made reference to the work to deal with one of your chakras, the Swadhisthana chakra. This Kundalini Yoga book details the 14 chakras that we have. And powerful winter solstice course, we actually were given meditations to help us with the practical understanding and application in our lives of the qualities of God, God's omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. So this person, Baratu, has a question, Shechem or Shechem. He's one of the people on here tonight who's actually in the course. And he says in the ritual, he's speaking about in the Utchau METU, are you to go through omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence, and then the Swadhisthana, all four for each session of failure to live a law?
All four for the
Meaning the violations of omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, and the violations of the Swadhisthana.
I don't quite. He says all four for the each success and a statement or failure to live alone.
Right.
In other words, in the omnipresence, you go through the ones that you can say not violated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You put all of those together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then now you do the ones that you did not, get together, they did not transcend, and you pledge. And you do that with the omnipresent, omniscience, the omnipotence, and the Swadhisthana.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple, process.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through all four of them in one meditation. I don't know if that's what he's asking.
Two. Okay, and we have Kenneth who is asking, what is the difference between the Ma'at 11 Laws book and the online course?
Well, for one, the course has the meditations, the Ma'at 11 Laws course has the meditations, it has the mantras, it has guidance on how to do the meditations, and so that you can take the information in the book, you can take it into your mind, into your psyche, to make those changes that are spoken about in the books real. You see that? Because you see, at the end of the day, spiritual teachings must be absorbed into your faculties. It's not an intellectual process. It's a deep, psychological cultivation, and behavioral, change dynamics.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we have Nanika Nanika is asking, is a goal like having twin girls realistic? Is this something that I can meditate and ask God for? Or is this something that is determined by the will of God?
Well, it's determined by the will of God. We cannot ask for, twins or girls or boys and things of that nature because children have their own destiny. You see that? Okay, in other words, it's not up to you and things of that nature and so forth. And don't forget that the goal of your meditation is an effect. The real goal of the meditation is your spiritual growth and development. You see that? The mundane goal is the effect to the degree that you improve your psyche, improve your mind and your spirit. You see, to that degree, you will be able to achieve your mundane goals. But something like that impacts on somebody else's destiny. In this case, here, the children that will come through you. It's up to God. It's not up to you. You see that? Could it happen? Yeah, of course it could happen, but not because you so willed it or desired it. And if you're going to push that, do not push it in a way that if it doesn't happen, you end up, overwhelmed by negative emotions, by sadness and, beliefs of failure and so on. But to them,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking off stage. I was asking a follow-up that if someone has a goal of having a family, having children, is that something that it's appropriate for them to visualize happening or not?
but I guess you were offline when I gave the answer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we have Carlos Brown on YouTube who says, the health teachings of the ageless wisdom was the most important book he's ever read. I guess it was very impactful. He would like to know if you will ever reprint it.
I don't think I will ever reprint it, so hold on to the copy. It might be worth quite a whole lot 10, 20 years from now. And the reason why I'm not going to reprint it is because so much has been discovered, so much about nutraceuticals and biology and biochemistry has been, discovered since then, that any other book that I will, write on health has to include, these new discoveries. For example, it's able to keep Osaka Society members, free of COVID and minimizing the effects of COVID by knowing how to prescribe for them EPA, 1,000 milligrams, and DHA, 1,000 milligrams every day, because those are the main nutritional precursors of the inflammation response. You see that? And the sources of the fatty acids that you need, that you must have in your diet, okay, and so on. They're not electives, and most people don't get enough EPA and DHA, so they have uncontrolled, inflammation, which is how COVID kills. So knowledge like that are the things that have superseded the things that we spoke about in the 60s and 70s, back to Eden and Dr. Kellogg and all of these people, the naturopaths. Biology has come a very, very long way. You see that. Our knowledge of Chinese medicine, has changed our outlook, our understanding of healing and so forth. So we need to update.
All right, Shechem. I know the hour is getting late. We did have a few people on Tuesday and also tonight when you were speaking about the application of this ritual to the rituals that we do for the deceased. Ask if there were things that they could do for a child or a family member that had passed on.
Rituals for the deceased, are things that it's best left in the hands of people, with a lot of experience with these kind of rituals and things of that nature. You see that. Otherwise, you might end up, inadvertently interfering, with that bardo, experience of the deceased. So it's best to leave such things to people that have been trained and have developed experience, with such practices.
So is the practice that many people have of having a some type of, I wouldn't call it a shrine, but pictures or an area in their house where they have deceased family members, is that something that can interfere, or is that something that's helpful, or just something that we're doing for ourselves?
If you want to have mementos, pictures of family members and good friends that have passed, you can, you feel free, to hang them up and put them right. You can, if you want to create a shrine, you should ask a priest or priestess in the Kamitic tradition or Yoruba tradition, on, a Kan tradition, on how to set up a shrine, okay, that would not interfere with the spiritual beliefs of the deceased. Because that's very important. You don't want to surround the deceased, with implements and symbols that confuse their psyche, that the surviving part of their spirit. Yes, and it's very important. We want the best for our deceased family, but you can make the mistake of bringing certain spiritual things that the deceased was not into when they were alive, and you want to bring it onto them after they have passed on, and you should not do that. Whatever you put into a shrine or a memento of deceased should be what they were comfortable with when they were alive, unless you have a knowledgeable expert priest and priestess that is going to facilitate that transition of that mindset.
And Shechem, you mentioned on Tuesday about the Tibetan Book of the Dead and some parallels. In the Kamitic tradition, is there a belief or understanding that you can reincarnate not as a human being, but as an animal, as they have in those traditions?
The Greeks, when they came into Egypt and colonized Egypt for a while, they propagated that nonsense. That part of Egyptian, beliefs was, that you come back into this world as animals or whatever, and they confuse, the second part of the so-called Book of the Dead, the Pertem. People call it the Pertem. I call it Nuk O Oser. You see, the second part of that book, where, the deceased or the initiate, speaks about how they come back to earth and enter into the body of different creatures. You see that, okay? And what they were actually saying here is that it is the consciousness that has the freedom to enter, different bodies, different types of creatures, etc., etc. And they were really talking about the powers of consciousness, that has been released from the restrictive negative ideas of, identification with the human and with the body. So that the Greeks now thought that the Egyptian priests were talking about coming, reincarnating. And if you read that part of the METU NETER, so-called Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you find that they're not saying that. They're saying that now that they have that they've removed the fetters, meaning the human, constraining beliefs, they can now be free to travel through the 7, levels, dimensions of the universe, and come back, into different creatures and things of nature, even go into different stars and so forth. And that's really also the modern Egyptologists, they have this false belief that the ancient Egyptian came from this star, the kings came from that star, and they want to go back to that. So this, in other words, it's important to not let, other people tell your story, because sometimes they might even know the truth and they will do their best, to commit, spiritual genocide, meaning obliterate your culture by willfully, saying incorrect things about it. There is a translation of the METU NETER, so-called Book of the Dead, by a Christian priest. And when you read the book, you see that, and you read Wallace Burge's, translation with the actual hieroglyphs, the hieroglyphic text, it makes you wonder what book the Christian priest was reading. It was translating, because you find that the book had, what this guy is saying, had absolutely nothing to do with the actual script itself. Right now the name of the priest doesn't come to me, the minister doesn't come to me, but Western scholars have gone to the lengths to deny, and falsify the teachings of ancient Egypt, for the simple fact that they could not admit the fact that ancient Egypt was the source of Greek, Greco-Roman, and Judaic, spiritual philosophies. You see that? Yet they agree that yes, they were in Egypt, for over 100 years, 200-300 years. How can you live in a land and not absorb its teachings? You see that? And that's where all these civilizations had their birth. You see that?
Mm. Yes, Shechem, and there's a line related to what you're speaking about, where they're trying to say that these weren't indigenous Africans that built this civilization. These were people that came from another star or another planet, because there's no way that technology that they see exhibited could have been here on Earth.
Well, the Sphinx at Giza, right? If you go back and you look at the picture of the Sphinx of Giza, even though Napoleon destroyed the nose of the Sphinx, part of the nose, you find that this is a clear, African person. The sculpture, of the man, part of the Sphinx, is an African person. So, and the people who are trying to say that, the Sphinx was created centuries before King Khufu or Khafra, whatever. And so that would make it seem that some visitor from some other planet came and was so smitten by African culture that he built this Sphinx in honor of African people. No, the Sphinx was built by Khafra and his face is on it. And when Napoleon went to see these wonders of the world, he saw that this is a black man, and he tried to destroy it by having his cannoneers, destroy the nose. But it was so massive and so powerfully built that he could only remove part of the nose. Mm-hmm. You see that?
Too. Well, Shechem, we want to thank you again for spending another evening with us. Sharon says, I always enjoy your teachings, and this lifestyle has been so beneficial for me. I thank God for you. And she's echoing a lot of people online now and in the past. So I'm going to ask you if you have any closing thoughts. You've spent quite a bit of time with us tonight on this very important topic before we close.
Yes, and what I want to say to you is that we're going to follow up and include, this additional information into the re-edition of the book, the Utchau METU, so that people have a better understanding of how to use this system in any and every meditation that they are doing. And they have to learn to understand that they should meditate with a purpose. And the purpose of every meditation is for them to improve their spirituality. And to the degree that they improve their spirituality, they will achieve their mundane goals. And I say mundane goals, not their goals. You see that their mundane goals will be an effect, from achieving and improving their spiritual, nature. And that is why the young lady was confused or the young man was confused with the belief that corrupt and criminal people can achieve, their goals in life. You see that, and so how is that different from spirituality? Spirituality, the real goal of spirituality is to become a divine being, and as a divine being, you will enjoy a very holistic, harmonious life and bring such a life to others. When you become an Neter, a divine being, you will have the knowledge, the divine guidance to uplift your community in a healthy, manner with wellness and free of suffering. And that is what you want to bring to the world. You see that, don't let the fact that people don't live spiritually and then they still have wealth and monies and these things here, but they don't have social wellness. They don't have spiritual wellness. I just heard the news today where the young lady, Wendy, is now has dementia and aphasia, and so the thing is, the person had all of this wealth and fame or whatever. I think it is Wendy Williams, I believe, right? Okay, all the fame and all of that and things of that nature. But you see that wealth and that fame, made her do things that were not beneficial to her. And like many and so many people who have had fame and wealth and did nothing wrong to others, still are not able to enjoy their lives and improve the lives of the people around them, because you see what you need is your spirituality, your spiritual development, so that God can come through you and help to save this world. And this world, my beloved, is in deep trouble. This is the year of the dragon, and you're going to see all kinds of draconian things happening. And it's already started, and we haven't got into the month of the dragon yet. Peace and blessing, my beloved.
Thank you. Shechem Shechem. Appreciate your time and your energy and your constant example. So on behalf of everyone here, I want to say Anet Sharak, power, peace, and blessings to you, and enjoy your evening.
Peace and blessing to everyone. Hotep.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. You can go to www.Kamitic Legacy, Kamitic legacy.com. Sign up for our email list so we can notify you as soon as pre-orders are being taken for that book. And you'll also find information there on how to get involved in Ma'at, the 11 Laws of Health, Wealth, and Success. That is an on-demand, instantly available deep dive into all 11 laws that we spoke about tonight and how to activate those powers within your spirit through Kamitic meditation. Or you can jump into the Winter Solstice Season program, which is winding down. We're in our last 30 days or so. Not too late for you to go gung-ho into it and get started. A very, very powerful cleansing of one of your psychic centers, the Swadhisthana chakra, which is critical to your development of happiness. So thank you again. Peace and blessings.
Take that step.
Over the hills, up the mountain, to the top, taking a step. No more spills from the fountain. We won't stop, taking a step.
Take that step.
Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step.
Take that step.
Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step.
Yeah.
Made it this far, we have to keep on. No one will stop us, taking a step. Flying to that stop, singing our song. Sweep away the dust, taking a step. Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step. Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step. Higher heights, moving on, stepping on, taking that step. Keep on moving on, stepping up, taking that steps. We will continue to take that step.
Over the moon,
Continue.
we will continue
To take that step.
take that step. Gonna have fun. We will continue to take
Taking
that
that
step.
step.
Feeling brand new, getting it done. We will continue to take
Taking
that
that
step.
step.
Taking a step.